So now we have Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and I think Amaris brought this fabulous edition, the City Lights edition. Isn't that great?
Yep.
I love that. Did you
Near and
just?
dear to my heart.
It's
No, I've
dear.
had it
Did
for a
you
while.
just? You've had it for a while, but it's pristine. You're supposed to write in it. Oh, you wrote a little bit in it. This is quite a poem, and you know, given the conformities we've been dealing with recently, this is a real breakthrough in the mid-50s. So let's just look at some passages. Let's do the best we can with it. There's so much we could say and so much we won't get to say, but let's start right away with this fabulous, famous first line. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked. Let me ask this question of you. How is it possible for the best minds of a generation, best brains, best intelligences of a generation, to pass through universities among the scholars of war, expelled from the academies for crazy? What's the disjuncture here? What's wrong? Emily?
The academy is supposed to be the sanctuary for the best minds of our generation.
And yet...
Here they're expelled, they're not welcome, they're destroyed.
So why do you think they're not welcome, Molly?
Because their ideas are too radical and they don't fit in the academic box.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Anna?
I think he's defining best minds of my generation differently than the academies would define best minds of a generation.
How? Just give us a starter on this. How is he defining?
Well, I mean, some people would define best minds of a generation as like a philosopher, scholar type, someone who, you know, wants to sit in an office with leather-bound books and read all day and write papers, but this is a different kind of best mind. This is a creative best mind.
Why scholars of war? Anybody? Dave? Scholars of war? That's clearly not a happy phrase.
I think he's just referring to the old traditional power structure. I mean, these people, you know, the teachers came out of World War II and they're all in reaction to that, and they taught.
They are in reaction, not the teachers, but the beats.
Right. The teachers are a product of World War II.
Right. Scholars of war, it's really quite a specific reference in a way, a generational reference. It's not simply that these are scholars who fought in World War II, but that the universities, as they became mega universities, universities like the University of California, Berkeley we call it, or Cal, this became a kind of mega university where there were, in fact, scholars in new, let's say, political science, regional science related disciplines that were actually doing the work of the government in the Cold War. I think that's probably the reference here. And that to be affiliated with such a university for someone like Ginsberg, it felt as if there were ethical compromises involved. Okay, so expelled from the academies for crazy. Any final comment on this? Max? What's he seems to be declaring something passionately. It's very intellectual, this poem, but it's not happening in the universities. Expelled. Let's just say one more thing about this. Expelled from the academies for crazy.
It seems like we're wondering what the crazy is. Like, what is? It seems almost like it should go with for academies for publishing crazy and obscene odes, but rather he just says crazy.
Crazy becomes a noun.
Goes back to just like that madness that has completely destroyed them. These best minds. It's just crazy. Just
So we'll have more
madness.
to say about this madness, but clearly it's not acceptable to think this way, to be this way, to exist this way in a university. All right, our next passage is simply a line or two, depending on how you lineate it. Who studied Plotinus, Poe, St. John of the Cross, telepathy, and Bop Kabbalah because the cosmos instinctively vibrated at their feet in Kansas. I have two questions for you. One, what kind of curriculum is this? What kind of anthology is this? And two, how does the word because work? Is it really cause and effect? First, the slightly easier question. What kind of curriculum is this? Is this a curriculum you're going to get in a class at the University of Pennsylvania, Allie?
I wish. Actually, I think it's possible.
It's possible, certainly, because look at Amaris's shirt.
Hard enough.
I mean, a university that could offer a black T-shirt that's still established for 1745. That word "established" in context with the black. I mean, it's branded and everything. Anyway, this university must be okay. Anyway, Allie, go ahead.
I think it's certainly a mystical syllabus.
It's a mystical. Any mysticism
spiritual.
in there?
Well, Kabbalah.
Bop Kabbalah,
Kabbalah.
yeah. Bop is jazz, right?
St. John of the Cross.
St. John of the Cross, who is a saint who is into certain mysticism and also a poet. And so this is the alternative, this is the non-academic, this is your reading list if you want to be a beat. Right? This is what you, and he's saying these are, and we, though the best minds of the generation who were expelled from the academies, studied this stuff. Implicitly, you should do it too. Okay, so what was my second question? Why? Because they studied these things because the cosmos instinctively vibrated. Any idea? It's a tough question. Is there cause and effect?
Maybe out of an intuitive sense of affinity to these poets who may not be affiliated with any institution.
Good, you're getting there. Just let's freewheel a little bit on this.
If the
Molly?
cosmos is vibrating at their feet, they're feeling something else. They're sensing something else in the world.
And where? Is it New York or San Francisco? Is it Columbia University?
Kansas.
It's Kansas. It's the middle of the country. You know, it's this is a kind of reference to their traveling university. You know, with someone on speed driving the car, jalopy, real fast across the country, and back again, and getting to Kansas and feeling the continentalism of America, really, that's kind of instructing them to try a different intellectual tradition. Go ahead, Allie.
Yeah, I think the fact that Kansas is specified kind of hints to, I mean, that's so specific. And it's interesting to kind of, if you were thinking about this in strictly traditional cause and effect, in a cause and effect way, then, you know, the fact that it's only because this vibration happened in Kansas that they adopted this kind of alternative syllabus, I think that kind of hints to, or points towards, kind of a multiplicity of causes.
That's really great. I've been reading this poem for a long time, and I never thought of that. Let me see if I can, in a friendly way, translate and maybe add to what you just said. If you read all these things, one of the things that's consistent in this curriculum is a kind of eschewing of cause and effect, a kind of non-rationalism that in fact creates this antic, comic, joking cause and effect thing about why is it that we read this? Because of this thing that doesn't make sense. All right, so let's talk about one more passage close to this one, and then we'll take a break and come back and finish, insofar as we can finish it at all, the first section of Howl. And this is this wonderful passage about the FBI who reappeared on the West Coast. I love that, reappeared. They've been driving, they put their feet in Kansas, they listen to the vibration, they read all this weird stuff, and then now fully re-educated and fresh, they arrive, they reappear in San Francisco, and now they're investigating the FBI in beards and shorts with big pacifist eyes, sexy in their dark skin, passing out incomprehensible leaflets, burning cigarette holes in their arms, protesting their narcotic tobacco haze of capitalism, and distributing super communist pamphlets. Super communist is capitalized in Union Square, that's New York. I don't know if there's a Union Square in San Francisco. I think this is New York. Weeping and undressing while the sirens of Los Alamos wailed them down and wailed down Wall and the Staten Island Ferry, etc. Okay, so what's going on here? First, say anything about what's going on. Go ahead, Emily, and then Molly.
Well, I think one of my favorite parts of this poem was that these people are investigating the FBI. They're investigating the investigators, and
right.
It seems that what these people are doing here, these rejects are doing, is they're the ones who are asking the serious questions. And then maybe in order to ask those serious questions about what we're doing and how we're doing it, we have to be sort of looking in as outsiders. We have to be like rejects of some kind.
Good, nice. Molly?
Yeah, it's almost like a conspiracy theorist type of thing, where really
absolutely. Paranoia.
Yeah, asking the questions that most people would rather not ask, and they're trying to make a political statement, but it becomes a very sort of incomprehensible, multifaceted, general, dissatisfied political statement.
Yeah, I mean, this is a counterculture that isn't reproducing the I'm right, left, right political discourse that they inherited from the 20s and 30s and 40s and was still going on in the 50s. This was a way of saying, standing completely aside from that. and then presenting as another side something that doesn't participate in the political discourse at all, that makes no sense, something that is incomprehensible, right? And what else is incomprehensible here? You have this, what else is incomprehensible here? What else is worth saying about this? What kind of protest against the cigarette companies do we have? It's not we abstain from cigarettes. We're going to burn ourselves, right? America, you made me. I am you. If you want me to be addicted to Time Magazine, I'm addicted to Time Magazine. If you want me to smoke, I'll smoke all the way to messing around with my body. So we're looking at another passage in the first section of Allen Ginsberg's poem, Howl, and I'll just read the line. Who were burned alive in their innocent flannel suits on Madison Avenue amid blasts of leaden verse and the tanked-up clatter of the iron regiments of fashion and the nitroglycerine shrieks of the fairies of advertising and the mustard gas of sinister, intelligent editors. And then I'll add this line, the rest of it, because I love it, but it's not quite relevant to the topic. Or were run down by the drunken taxicabs of absolute reality. All right, what's the scene here? Burned alive in their flannel suits. What's the flannel suit reference? Anybody know it? Uh-oh.
The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit.
The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, which is a sort of not very good novel, but it became a phrase. Vintage reference to what? Fans of Mad Men?
An ad exec?
The ad exec, well, or any 9-to-5-er in New York, Manhattan, flannel suit. The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit was a kind of a boring 9-to-5-er who commuted in. Yeah, so what's happening here? Why burned alive? What's Ginsberg saying about that life? And what's the leaden verse and the tanked-up clatter?
He's rejecting the 9-to-5, and he's rejecting the leaden verse could be that little pithy advertising statement that they make about buying toothpaste or shaving cream.
Could be. Anybody want to give an example of leaden verse that comes out of Mad Men? No, I don't mean the show, but Madison Avenue.
Just sort of really clumsy, tacky, like copywriting.
Not even clumsy, just very slick. I mean, I think of, I hope this is a non-profit kind of setting here, so I don't mind saying this, but when I was growing up in the 60s, Coke was called the real thing, and somebody would come on and say, Coke, it's the real thing. That's the kind of leaden verse that seems to be annoying him here, but what else do we have to say about it? What does it have to do with the iron regiments of fashion and the mustard gas of sinister, intelligent editors? What kind of New York life is he rejecting here? Emery's.
I think here we're finding the cause of death of the best minds of the generation referred to in the first phrase. This is what is smothering out all the individuality and intelligence and sense of freedom.
And it's autobiographical for Allen Ginsberg, who spent a little time trying to see if he could live a life in which he was a sort of low-level advertising, I guess a copywriter or some kind of low-level guy, in a madman in training. I like the idea of burned alive. It's almost as if now burned alive, there's something about flannel suits that made me think they're very flammable. But burned alive and then arose phoenix-like as beatific.
You almost have to burn your flannel suit to really get out of that.
To get out of it, and then to reemerge like a phoenix, burned and now released. All right, one last passage of this beloved poem, Howl, a poem that arguably really sort of solidified readers' sense of what the Beat generation, what the Beat writers were doing. It's one of the last ones. Let's look at it for a few minutes. To recreate the syntax and measure of poor human prose, and stand before you speechless and intelligent and shaking with shame, rejected, yet confessing out the soul to conform to the rhythm of thought in his naked and endless head. Just let's start there. Let's take a little extra time and figure out what this means. This is really important. Molly, your first thought?
It's a very vulnerable act of creating poetry directly from what's in your head.
What are the signs of vulnerability that you see?
Naked.
Naked?
Shaking with shame.
Shaking with shame. This is a really big moment. Okay, thanks. That's a good start. Anna, anything you want to add to this?
I think where we have recreate the syntax and measure poor human prose and conform to the rhythm of thought. I think if you're thinking about the beats and sort of what this poem sort of is, recreating syntax, like conforming to the rhythm of thought, like that seems almost paradoxical. It seems counter to what we're actually doing, but it's really not, because conform to the rhythm of thought, it's doing exactly what Emily says in Brain Within Its Groove. You're supposed to be conforming to what your brain is just going to do.
Do we have a synonym for conform in this context?
Kind of just allow your brain to be in its, be in its groove and then be out of its groove. And
Okay.
make a new
What's a
groove.
synonym for conform? Anybody?
Constrain.
Constrain. Constrain oneself, I guess. Okay, so this is rejecting yet confessing. What's this notion of, what is the theory of writing that's presented in this passage? Emery's? What idea of writing do we have here?
I think it's lack of self-censorship. A little bit before, when he says speechless, I don't think he means silent there. He means embracing incomprehensibility, rejecting
Good.
normal discourse.
Recreating the syntax of human prose. We're going to try. This is a form of make it new. This is a resurgence. It's not a lot. It doesn't have a lot to do with modernism directly. It's more harking back to Whitmanianism and getting to a make it new thing through there. But it shares the sensibility of modernist manifestos in wanting to clear the space and start over. So recreating the syntax and measure of poor human prose and stand before you. Who would you be? It's the first.
You, the readers.
You, yeah, the readers, speechless. I'm here. This is me. I'm on this page. Rejected yet confessing. Dave, you want to deal with that paradox? Rejected yet confessing?
I think it's really autobiographical for how outside of the mainstream Ginsberg felt. I mean, this is where it starts to get personal for Ginsberg, and he's just talking about his shame, his personal feelings of rejection.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want somebody comment one more time on the implicit theory of the way writing happens.
Well, if it's poor human prose, I mean, that could be kind of a move to recreate in poetry how people speak.
Okay, that's possible.
Instead of,
Good.
if we think about Wilbur's Death of a Toad, he's not going up to someone and saying, and like giving this fantastic metered elegy of the toad. He's saying, yo, today when I was mowing my lawn, I like crunched up a toad.
Okay, so you're talking about the kind of vocabulary and language. I want to focus on the last part of it. Rejected yet confessing, out the soul. Rhythm, thought, naked, endless.
Well, I think that kind of promotes the idea of not censoring yourself while you're in the process of writing.
So writing happens how? Kerouac is going to have a lot to say about this. Writing happens how?
It's unconscious.
Where does it come from?
From the thought.
The
The
gut
soul.
of the soul.
From the gut, from the soul, from the unconscious. It comes up and out. This is a theory of the way language works that's not going to be... The Chapter 9 poets are not going to abide by this kind of naive theory of language. This is an almost theory of a fantasy of transparent language. That if you get hepped up enough, right, and if you have tapped into the best part of your mind, the part that the Academy thinks is crazy, right, and you didn't get suppressed by social conformity, if you liberated the mind to go where it wants to go, you can write a language that doesn't get in the way, right? Freedom in writing derives from a feeling of being rejected yet confessing out the soul. Okay? Yet this is not what critics have said beat writing is. It is not a call for total freedom. It is not a call for anything goes. It is not a call for pure spontaneity. It's a call for the language to conform to the rhythm of thought in the writer's naked and endless head. It is carefully wrought, and yet it abides by the theory that if you just do enough rejecting of social convention, you will discover something better.